999ers risk their lives every day keeping us safe.
We do this job to help people.
But all too often, they're abused and attacked.
The vehicle threw me like a rag doll. It should have killed me.
These personal attacks on police, paramedics and firefighters are at an all-time high.
I'll admit, I was absolutely terrified.
We don't put on this uniform to be assaulted.
Leaving them traumatised and unable to work.
It felt like I was saying goodbye to my career.
But while the violent criminals responsible are hunted down and brought to justice,
You're under arrest. You do not have to say anything.
our protectors fight to get well and back on the job.
I was not going to give up. There was no way.
It's took a hell of a lot of hard work to get back to the place I'm just now.
Ready to face the next critical incident. Today, an officer is dragged into a busy road as he tries to make an arrest.
There was cars and there was traffic and there was buses just driving past us. You know, I was wrestling, struggling with this male on the floor.
A plainclothes officer is pulled along the street by a criminal in a getaway car.
I tried to get my feet moving as quick as the car would go, but couldn't, and eventually I lose my footing and end up flying through the air.
And with huge moral support from her colleagues, a paramedic is helped back to work after a vicious assault.
We know you're a very good paramedic. You know you're a good paramedic. And you're ready to go.
Good boy.
Rich Farrow was a police officer for 26 years. After starting his career in London, he returned to work in his home city of York, where he was following a proud family tradition.
I guess I became a police officer because my father had done 30 years service in North Yorkshire. So growing up as a child, listening to my father's stories and investigations that he'd done.
But Rich's police career was interrupted in 2012 when he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
It's a neurological condition. It's a condition that affects you daily. It causes variable symptoms, including fatigue, cognitive dysfunction, and mobility.
Some days are better than others. If you're having a good day, you can do a lot more things, so you can get out and spend time with the pets and the family. Other days, you're more not stuck to your house, but you're unable to walk very far, or you depend on your car to get you from A to B.
Rich's diagnosis meant that he was forced to change direction at work.
I was taken off frontline duties and I became an officer on the neighbourhood police team.
Neighbourhood policing teams are designed to make the police more visible and encourage interaction between communities and their local officers. In Rich's new role, he was responsible for patrolling York City Centre.
So you're working more with the community, dealing with neighbourhood issues, antisocial issues.
The move was supposed to put Rich into a less physically demanding role. But one shift in 2015 proved to be every bit as dangerous and challenging as frontline response work.
I was on mobile patrol in York City Centre. I was just going to an unrelated job when an incident came over the radio.
Can you make way to Exhibition Square, please? We've currently got him on camera. He's looking at all the bikes.
There was a male seen by the local CCTV operator where he had seen a male acting suspiciously around some bike racks.
The young man is totally unaware that every move he makes is being caught on camera.
The night of the incident, I was literally parked up, waiting for the traffic lights to change, just down the road there on Bootham. The CCTV operator was monitoring this offender who was stood by the bicycle racks over there, who was paying unhealthy interest into the bikes. So I was no more than 100 metres away from the offender.
Luckily, I was around the corner. I went around the corner and I saw this male cycling away from the bicycle racks.
came down the road here, did a U-turn, and I prevented his escape by pulling up in front of him. And textbook roadblock, really, stopped his escape.
Police car right in front of him now.
I quickly got out of my car, approached the male, and straight away he was very evasive, nervous, and he appears to be under the influence of drink or drugs. It was a case of just speaking with the male, find out what he's up to. Was he stealing a bike? Was he unlocking his own bike? Knowledge and experience, I knew something wasn't right. So that's when I searched him. Searched all of his pockets, couldn't find bolt croppers, screwdriver, or any other implements that would have been used to steal a bike or anything else. So I continued with my thorough search of him, made my way around to the back of his trousers to search around the back, at which point he then violently threw himself forwards towards me. We both ended up falling to the ground. We struggled on the ground. He was trying to escape. He then got to his feet and then he began to make his escape. He was running across a busy junction, chased after him and tackled him to the ground.
As Rich struggles with the offender in the middle of the road, they're both in serious danger of being hit by a passing vehicle.
There was cars and there was traffic and there was buses just driving past us. You know, I was wrestling, struggling with this male on the floor.
Rich needs help urgently, but with both hands occupied, he's unable to call for backup.
I was unable to get to my radio and activate the emergency button because the male was struggling violently. I had to keep control of him.
Seeing the danger he's in, a passing member of the public jumps in to help.
He told me that he was a professional cage fighter, a martial arts expert. So if you want someone to come to your assistance, you want a professional martial arts expert. Luckily, the male put a hold on him and incapacitated the offender. We restrained him, got him cuffed. Other units then began to arrive. We got the male to his feet. He was secured in the police vehicle.
Later, Rich makes a shocking discovery.
I also saw a large butcher's knife.
Around 17,000 assaults on NHS staff were reported last year. Yet these are often the people who are first on the scene, helping victims of the most traumatic incidents. Like paramedic Andrea Gibbs. Andrea spent most of her career working in London, where she played a major role in the rescue operation during the London bombings in 2005.
I was second ambulance dispatched to the bus bombing in Tavistock Square.
In this footage, you can see Andrea in the midst of this horrific event, treating one of the victims in the back of an ambulance.
The scenes that I saw there that day affected quite a lot of us. We did lose a lot of staff over that because they obviously had PTSD. A lot of people didn't realise that these members of staff were extremely vulnerable because it's not every day that you go to a bombing in central London. When we were finished with the bus bombing, we were then dispatched down to Russell Square. One particular young lady sticks in my mind. She had severe third-degree burns on both of her legs. She just kept screaming at me for me to let her mum know that she's okay, let her mum. But obviously the mobile network went down that day, so we couldn't contact anybody. So I just had to reassure this lady. She was amazingly brave. She was completely in shock, but she was amazingly brave. And but I do believe myself and my crewmate at the time, Charlie Lucas, we were very brave because nothing ever prepares you for something as catastrophic as that.
1 week later, Andrea addressed a crowd of thousands of people who had gathered at Trafalgar Square to remember all of those who had lost their lives.
Many of us have been traumatised by what we have had to deal with, but we are determined to carry on. We won't be terrorised.
In 2015, Andrea moved to Northern Ireland, where her career as a paramedic went from strength to strength.
Lovely girl, you know, very jolly, very caring person. So I was really looking forward to getting crewed up with her.
Having worked through something as harrowing as the 7/7 bombings, Andrea was confident she could handle anything her job could throw at her. But in 2017, Andrea was subject to an attack that shook even this strong woman to her very core.
It was my first night shift with Glenn Rhodes, and he's now my permanent crewmate. And the shift was not exceptional. It was just quite mundane calls, really. And we were called to a female in County Tyrone. We were met at the door by a male and female, and they said to us that there was a female upstairs and they think that she had had a seizure.
The girl was lying on a bed. She was very thin girl with a tracksuit, breathing, and semi-conscious, we thought.
So we started examining her, checking her vital signs, and she wouldn't speak to us, even though I knew that she actually was conscious at the time. I said, "Can you hear me? You need to speak to us so we can help you. It was easier for us to help you if you could speak to us."
There was nothing unusual about this call, until all of a sudden, the patient's behaviour changed.
In a split second, she jumped up from the bed and she punched me straight in the chest.
Andrea said to me, "Go and phone the police just in case and take down the equipment," which I did. That's when things kicked off.
Next minute I knew I was getting flung violently forward. I've never been knocked out in my life, only through surgery, so I don't know what it feels like. But the next minute, all I remember was that, all I could remember was when I came round was that this female was sitting on top of me and she had her hands around my neck, trying to strangle me.
Glenn was trying to get help and was too far away to hear what was happening.
I went down to the ambulance, left the equipment back, phoned our control to ask for police assistance, just in case things may get worse. And apparently Andrea was calling my name, which I didn't hear.
I looked up at her and I thought she threw her head back and I thought she was going to headbutt me. So I can't remember if I prepared myself for it or anything like that. I just remember her black hair going flying back. And she lunged forward and she bit into the bottom of my lip. I just thought, what's happened to me? Is this person trying to kill me? And she then started punching me around the head. Her weight shifted to one side, so I thought she was going to get off me, but she didn't. She lunged down and she bit into my left leg. I could hear somebody screaming, but I couldn't figure out if it was me or was it the other female. I couldn't figure out who was screaming.
I went back up the stairs. That's when she ran past me on the stairwell. And I realised there was a problem there. So I ran back down into the ambulance with her. She was swollen, and her lip looked quite swollen. She was bitten. She was in a complete panic and a daze, you know, and crying, very, very, very upset.
And I thought I was going to die. I thought, why would somebody want to kill me? I've not done nothing wrong. I was only there to help her.
I felt that bad for her. I wish it was me who had been the one that was attacking, not her. And just wanted to comfort her and put my arm around her, just crying. She's so upset.
Andrea was immediately rushed to hospital.
I remember sitting in the cubicle and Glenn, lovely Glenn, he says that he's completely distraught because he went through it with me as well, you know.
Andrea was discharged, But the nightmare was only just beginning. She had a punctured lip and an injury to her brain caused by concussion, but she was also suffering from post-traumatic stress, which had the biggest impact. Later, Andrea faces a tough battle on the road to recovery.
I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat properly, I was a nervous, anxious wreck.
And huge support from her teammate Glenn is crucial to her success.
He's definitely helped me big time. He's sort of like bounced me back to my normal self, you know.
Most cop cars are equipped with dash cams, which have become an extremely useful tool in capturing criminal activity on the roads. This shocking footage shows the moment a police officer was driven at deliberately by the driver of a stolen vehicle. The dashcam recording shows police chasing the driver at high speed on an A road in Surrey. Using a tactical maneuver, they manage to bring the car to a stop, but the driver tries to reverse and escape. Brave coppers jump in and try to get him out of the car. But as one officer stands in front of the car, the driver recklessly drives straight at him. Luckily, the officer sustained no serious injuries.
You're right.
The driver was arrested and pleaded guilty to charges of actual bodily harm, dangerous driving, driving whilst disqualified, and driving whilst unfit. He was sentenced to 23 months in prison and has had his licence disqualified for 3 years. Still to come, a bravery award and a new role in the community make Rich's family proud.
We're going to do another right shoulder check.
He's come out of a job that he loved through ill health and has managed that like a hero.
And Andrea battles to get back to the job she loves.
I need to try and get myself back to full confidence and to feel that I'm able to do the job again.
In York city centre, PC Rich Farrow has apprehended a suspected bike thief. After a violent struggle which saw him dragged into the line of passing traffic, the offender is finally safely in the back of a police van. But Rich is about to make a shocking discovery.
I then went back to where my first initial struggle with a male was, because I wanted to retrieve my personal protective equipment that had fallen off. When I went back to retrieve it, picked up my equipment, but I also saw a large butcher's knife.
The knife is lying in the road, close to where Rich first stopped the offender.
It was about 12 inches long in length. And initially I thought that definitely wasn't there when I encountered the male to start with. Was there another reason why that knife was on the ground, or had it come from him?
So Rich turns to the eye in the sky for some answers.
I spoke to the CCTV operator. He rewound the footage, replayed the footage. It's quite clearly seen on the CCTV that this knife was secreted down the back of his trousers. Sort of gives you shivers thinking about it now, but it was secreted down the back of his trousers. When we fell to the ground, it was luckily, for myself, it was ejected from his clothing. It does make you think, had that knife still been on his person when I was struggling with him, would he have used it on me? There was only one reason why that male had a knife on him, and that was to cause serious injury to myself or a member of the public.
This incident brought back memories of a terrible experience that happened early in Rich's career.
Sort of gives me shivers thinking back. When I worked in London back in 1997, a friend and colleague of mine, Nina Mackay, she was fatally stabbed on duty. She was trying to arrest a male, and sadly, the male was waiting behind the door. So incidences like that remain with you throughout your service.
Rich knows he had a lucky escape that day.
It's just police instinct. You do what you joined up to do. You're there to apprehend and deal with the incident there in front of you. You know, you just do the best that you can. Nobody was seriously injured, apart from a few scrapes and bruises. We all went home that evening safe. It could have ended so much differently.
The offender was convicted of possession of a blade in a public place and obstructing a police officer. He was sentenced to 12 months in prison and was ordered to pay £280 in fines. In the days following the incident, Rich was forced to reassess his career.
Having MS, you're not as strong, you're slower with regards to your reaction time to situations. A knife incident like that, if you're slightly delayed with your reaction time, it could be life-threatening. You know, it could have ended so much differently. It did affect me after the incident, psychologically. It sort of became a little bit too much at work. I was never going to go back to frontline duties as a result of that. It was decided that the best decision was to medically retire me on ill health grounds. Sadly, I never did get to my 30-year service. I never did get to the finishing line, and that's the worst feeling ever as a police officer. When the door closes behind you for the last time, you're stepping out into the world as a member of the public for the first time, and yeah, it does have a knock-on effect.
The fact that the incident came when it came meant that he was able to leave on a high, leave with that sort of, you know, feeling inside that he was able to do that job that he loved, and people were saying that as well, not just himself, but actually, or people that loved him, but actually, you know, members of the public and colleagues and everybody around him was actually saying, yeah, you know, you've done well.
How well Rich had done was recognised by the police and the public after he retired.
As a result of this incident, the knife incident, I was given a commendation and I was given a Public Choice Award voted by members of the public of North Yorkshire.
There was also another nomination in store for Rich.
I was then nominated by North Yorkshire Police Federation to go down to London to receive another National Police Bravery Award.
We are very, very proud of him, and I particularly am very proud of him. I think that he has done remarkably well, not only as a police officer and doing the job that he absolutely loves and was very good at, but that he's come out of a job that he loved through ill health and has managed that like a hero. He's been, you know, in my eyes, he has been amazing in the way that he's dealt with it.
Just watch me to start with, okay? I'm going to teach you how to get onto your bike safely. Put your bike on the curb.
Even though he's left the police, Rich continues to serve his community.
Safely, okay? My intention now is to move down the road there, okay? So I'm going to do another right shoulder check.
I now work for City of York Council as a road safety instructor. I go into schools and I teach kids road safety. So it's again going back into the community, which I love to do prior to retiring.
Good girl, off you go then. So cycle up the road.
I still have contact with North Yorkshire Police. I am a police cadet leader, teaching kids aged from 14 to 18, teaching them life skills, teaching them law, working with the community, doing fundraising events.
Was there any questions? Yeah. What have you learned?
I've learned how to put my bike down properly.
Well done, Bethan, because sometimes you've seen your friends throwing their bikes on the floor and they don't look after them. They don't last more than 5 minutes, do they? And if you look after your bike, it'll look after you, won't it? I just love doing this job that I now do. It's very rewarding. And Maya, what have you learned about today?
I've learned that you have to make eye contact with the driver.
You do? Because what would happen if you don't make eye contact with the driver?
They would knock you off.
They could knock you off, couldn't they? I take them out, reassure them, give them confidence so they can go out and enjoy cycling as we all should do. Yes, Chloe?
And also to look when there's a junction coming on before you set off in case a car is coming.
It's a good exercise, it's good for myself, it's a good transition from being in the police force. It's about checking over your right shoulder. You have to expect the unexpected, okay? And teaching children gives you that rewarding feeling. I enjoy going home after I've taught them, knowing that I've made a difference.
Police officers equipped with body-worn cameras will switch them on if they sense they're in a dangerous situation.
Put the knife down!
In this clip, officers have been called to reports of a man attacking cars with a baseball bat. As they approach the house, the suspect lunges at the officer with a samurai sword.
Ah! Take taser!
The officer manages to fire his taser at the knifeman before collapsing on the ground.
We need to get him in the car and need to grade 1 into hospital now.
There's no time to waste. The officer is losing blood and needs urgent medical attention.
Right, there, get pressure on it.
His quick-thinking colleague manages to improvise a tourniquet and takes him to hospital, where doctors find that the sword has narrowly missed a major artery. Both of the officers involved were given a Police Bravery Award. The offender, who was suffering from mental ill health, was sentenced in court to a hospital order without time limit. "18 months ago, paramedic Andrea Gibbs was viciously attacked by a patient.
In a split second, she jumped up from the bed and she punched me straight in the chest.
The attack had a devastating effect on Andrea.
I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat properly. I was a nervous, anxious wreck.
Andrea was off sick for 6 months, but eventually decided that she might be ready to get back in an ambulance.
The first shift, I was a nervous wreck, didn't sleep the night before. It was a disaster. I just had a bit of a meltdown, really. You know, it was a really bad anxiety attack. And I couldn't concentrate. And I just knew that I couldn't carry on. I wasn't ready to go back on the road. I was a nervous wreck. So I went off sick again.
Luckily for Andrea, area manager Laura came to her rescue.
I think for Andrea, very early on, I saw something that was terribly wrong, in that I suppose from my own experience in the past, I was able to see that she was particularly hurt. She was losing her confidence. She was getting introverted. She wasn't coping at all well. So therefore, at that point, I felt that we had to step in and we had to support her a little bit more. She needed that little bit extra.
Yeah.
We put together a plan, that we would draw up a plan whereby we would give her a task, a project, and a tough task and a tough project, that her mind was fully occupied while she was at work.
Andrea became the leader on a project developing and improving infection control on ambulances.
She thought it'd be good therapy for me to get myself back into the working environment. I agreed to give it a go, see how I felt, and it was basically one of the best things I did to try and get myself and ease myself back into work. I was in charge of the whole project in the Western Division. Sort of gave me a purpose again.
Slowly, step by step, Andrea is preparing herself to get back on the road as a paramedic. And with this aim in mind, she's keeping her skills up to date for when the time comes.
and you want to look in, and what you're trying to do, will you tell me what are you trying to do?
Just trying to see the vocal cords. I've been doing it a long time, but, you know, obviously you do get rusty about the tiny little things. When something like this happens to somebody in the emergency service, the biggest thing that gets a knock is the confidence. So practicing these procedures definitely gets you back into how you're going to actually provide those skills out on the road.
Andrea's manager, Laura, is pleased with her progress.
Well, so you've done your training, and we know you're a very good paramedic. You know you're a good paramedic, and you're ready to go. And if there's any problems, and we'll sort it out as we go. But you've done everything you need to do to get this far. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that Andrea will get back, because what is the alternative for someone like Andrea? We could lose a valued member of staff. She could have to walk away from a job that she's fantastic at, and the fact that her colleagues love her and think she's brilliant at, but she could lose all that because of the actions of one person on one night.
Later, perseverance, the love of her family and support from peers prepare Andrea for life back on the road.
She had to be a strong person to get here, and I just feel really proud she was able to do that.
Great Yarmouth is one of Norfolk's best-known seaside resorts. But although it's a favourite holiday destination for many, it also has a darker side. This plainclothes policeman, whose identity is protected due to the sensitive nature of his work, is based with Norfolk Constabulary. He's with the neighbourhood policing team, which tackles drug crime in the town.
It's going out without uniform on. It's patrolling areas that have the most likelihood of drug dealing taking place. Identifying people who we believe might be waiting to deal drugs, or people waiting to receive drugs, and then when the time is right, stopping that person who we think is going to deal. Searching them, finding the drugs, arresting them, and then going through the court processes, getting them prosecuted.
Britain is plagued by county lines drug dealing. This refers to criminal gangs from big cities using children, teenagers and vulnerable adults to traffic drugs to towns and rural areas. And Great Yarmouth is no exception.
It was September 2017. We were out on patrol in an unmarked vehicle when we spotted a vehicle linked to county lines dealing. And the driver of the vehicle we identified as also being involved or linked to county lines dealing.
This is the same route that the police took on that day as they tried to track down the suspects.
So the car's in front, we're following it here, and my colleagues asking for further resources to help with the stop. Whilst that's been requested, the car pulls left, where that silver car is now going, so we'd followed the car behind. As it drove up this road, it pulled over to the left and stopped. And waiting to get in was two juveniles. One with links to dealing drugs for him, another was a female with links to child sexual exploitation at the time. The car pulls up right on this corner and the children get in. I swing the vehicle round and we go round the car and in front, and I wedge myself in like that at an angle. I jumped out, put my hands up and said police. At that point, the driver of the vehicle has put the car into reverse. Now, I ran round to the driver's side of the door, gone to open the door and said police again, and at that point, he's put his foot down on the pedal and the car's started to go backwards.
The incident was captured on a nearby CCTV camera.
So because of where I was standing and the door open, I was stopped behind the open door as the car started to reverse at quite high speeds. I tried to get my feet moving as quick as the car would go, but couldn't, and eventually I lose my footing and end up flying through the air. At that point, I thought, this is it, as in, I'm in trouble here. I've then hit the floor and hit my head, and the car has carried on reversing. I've ended up laying with the tyre on my right side of the back of the car. So my legs are underneath the car with my head looking out with the tyres here. My coat is underneath the tyre, so I can't move. My body armour is underneath the tyre, so I can't move, and I'm looking towards the car.
The sergeant who was with him runs towards the car to try to stop the driver.
Luckily for me, the car went forwards rather than backwards and drove off. Then I've kind of got to my feet, stumbled out into the middle of the road, rubbed my head, and then not collapsed, but realised I banged my head quite hard and sat down on the floor. Colleagues have arrived and started to look after me and look for the person who's driving the vehicle. Because it was so quick, because I tried to get away and couldn't, by that point they'd already gone forwards to leave, because the sergeant who was in the car with me had already gone over to grab hold of him out of the car, and he drove off before my sergeant could get hold of him. So I think it happened so quickly, I didn't have time to process it at the time. It was just, I can't get away, and then he's gone.
After getting the all clear from the hospital, the officer realises he's had a narrow escape.
I had a cut to my head where I hit the concrete. I had marks, tie marks on my stomach as well. I had muscle strains in my neck here and was very sore to move neck and shoulders. Except for being a bit battered and bruised, I was quite lucky to suffer quite low-level injury for effectively what could have been potentially life-ending or life-altering injuries.
But it wasn't the injuries that played on the officer's mind as much as the decisions that he had made in that moment.
People were asking me in the following weeks, are you okay? How are you feeling? And I was more embarrassed by the fact that actually I didn't have to do that. There were other options available to me. I could have waited a bit longer. If we'd have waited, then this would have been the road. It would have been better to stop them on and wait for my colleagues, because there would have been no way for the car to go. We could have come down both ends and come to a safer conclusion. And that would have been a better call to make, but you learn from your experiences, don't you? It's definitely something I won't be doing again. They didn't find him that day. He went and parked the car somewhere else and ran off. I think a week, maybe 2 weeks later, a couple of my colleagues were sitting on a bench having lunch, and they spotted him going to Boots in the middle of town. So they called for backup and approached him, and he started fighting with them as well. And at the time was arrested for an assault on one of the officers there as well.
The offender pleaded guilty to actual bodily harm. He was sentenced to 10 months in prison.
I think the embarrassment has gone away. That is probably one of the reasons why I want to keep catching bad guys, if that makes sense, because that one went. I don't like it when someone gets away, and consequently I want to make sure other people aren't afforded that opportunity if they are committing a crime.
The dangers of police work aren't always associated with crime. In this clip, police have been called to reports of a woman who's fallen off a canal bridge. Seeing that the woman is struggling to stay afloat, the officer wastes no time, taking off his jacket and plunging into the freezing cold water. He quickly swims over to the woman and pulls her safely to the towpath, where his colleague helps them both out of the water. A senior officer credited the PC with saving the woman's life and at no small risk to his own. While the woman was taken to be checked out, the heroic officer continued his shift for the day. After 18 tough months in recovery after a vicious attack, Andrea is finally back on the road.
I started off by doing like third man, so there's 3 of us in an ambulance, just so I observe.
Clear left.
Thank you.
Then after that, then it was just myself and Glenn.
Where?
It's in Claudie.
In Claudie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to have her back and get to know each other again, getting to know how she works, how I work. So it's been nice. We have a laugh. We have a laugh. Baby boy. You think that way stop?
We are good friends. We just bounce off each other, don't we?
That's it. The work is a joy, complete joy, you know. Doesn't feel like work. Some days does feel like work.
Oh, it looks like rapid response is on its way.
Good.
He's definitely helped me big time. If you can't move on with your life with sort of like Glenn beside you, then I don't know, you know, there's not much to say really. But as I say, like, he's been massive, massive help to my confidence and, you know, and bringing my personality back out again.
Andrea's future is looking bright. Her newfound confidence has allowed her to take steps towards moving up the career ladder.
I also applied to become a station officer and I was successful, so I'm just waiting for a position to become available. So it means I'll be leaving my Glen.
I'm going to miss you. I'm so happy for her to get the promotion, so happy. You know, she deserves it. After all she's been through, her years of service to both London and Northern Ireland. So we have to move on. But I'll see her a lot. I'll still see you.
Determination, perseverance, and help from her family and workmates have helped Andrea to turn a huge corner.
This is Trevor Campbell. He helped me through my recovery period with his colleague Cecil King. I nicknamed you the Chuckle Brothers, didn't I? This is Martin Ferguson. He's one of the cleaning operatives that I managed since March, didn't I?
Yeah.
We've been together from the beginning, haven't we, more or less?
Here, yes.
Trained them up and we're now one of the best performing divisions in the Northern Ireland Ambulance Service.
Get up there.
Right? This is Desi Bell, who's one of my cleaning operatives as well, Mount the Galvin. This is John, he's another one of my...
John.
This is our John, he's another one of our cleaning boys.
Come on, quick.
It just proves that, you know, with support from your colleagues and time, it is a great healer, you know, so I'm proud to say I'm still wearing the uniform and I've still got my epaulets on, so I have not come on leaps and bounds.
It's been a long, long journey, but overall, we are so pleased. I just feel really proud that Andrea has been able to do this. I mean, I know she's had help from her colleagues and everything else, but she had to be a strong person to get here, and I just feel really proud she was able to do that.
Big hug. Big hug.